Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Sasuke kidnaps Naruto. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. Sasuke Uchiha was a complex kid to say the least. His past was not one that many could relate to, and it was most definitely not an enjoyable one, not at all. For this, Uchiha's story caused him to become obsessed with revenge and disregard potential allies. Fortunately for this lost soul, there were people who accepted him regardless of his negativity. Those people were his fellows from Squad 7, and among them was Sasuke's best friend and rival, Naruto Uzumaki. It was true that these two could not stand being around one another, yet they had managed to forge a bond that could not be broken. But the two young genin still drove each other mad despite that connection. Take today, for example. The three 12-year-old genin from Kakashi's team were standing around at their usual meeting place, the small bridge that was located near the third training ground. How long is Kakashi-sensei going to take? Naruto whined as his patience drained. Why did that man always take forever to meet up with his squad? Complaining about it won't do anything, loser. Sasuke shot an annoyed glance at the blonde. Yeah, Naruto. Just shut up, Sakura agreed with the raven-haired boy, even though she concurred with the blonde's annoyance towards the absent Jonin. Naruto glared at Sasuke in response to his belittling statement. I didn't ask you for your opinion. You asked how long Kakashi was going to take, Sasuke stated plainly while rolling his eyes, so I gave you an answer. It was a rhetorical question. Naruto shouted. And you didn't even answer it. You just insulted me. Hey guys, the masked Jonin suddenly appeared, putting an end to the petty argument. Sorry I'm late, I got lost on the path of life? An indignant Sakura growled. You've used that one before. Kakashi's eye curved up to indicate that he had a sheepish smile underneath his mask. It's an easy path to get lost on. They all groaned at the foolish excuse. Anyways, we have a B-rank missions today. Yes, Naruto cheered. It's about time. All we ever do is walk dogs or find cats or babysit. Naruto continued listing the various D-rank assignments that introduced all of the amateur squads to the shinobi lifestyle. After listening to the orange ninja ramble on for several moments, Kakashi decided to cut off his pupil's excessive chattering. Can I explain the mission now, Naruto? Oh, yeah, sorry. Okay, so basically, some of the Leaf's neighboring villages have been complaining of children disappearing. We're supposed to go to one of these towns to investigate. Then, if we find out anything, we are supposed to track the missing children down and return them to their homes. Investigating doesn't seem like a B-rank mission, Sasuke said, for that seemed too simple to be considered as such. Well, Kakashi replied, I should say that it is a potential B-rank mission. Finding the facts could lead to more dangerous situations. That information was a bit of a disappointment for both of the male genin, for they wanted to gain skills that would prove useful in battle. We are going to be staying in a little town a few miles from here, so you need to be prepared to be out of the village for several days. Go pack your things and meet at the front gate in a half an hour. With that, Team 7's leader vanished in a puff of smoke. I wonder what's been happening to those kids. Sakura thought aloud. If other villages were requesting the assistance of shinobi, the situation must be extreme. I'm sure we can figure it out. Naruto smiled. He was always an optimist. This will be easy. Do you think something bad happened to them? Sakura asked with concern written across her face. They were kidnapped, so something bad will probably happen if it hasn't already. Why would someone take them for no reason? Sasuke answered morbidly. Let's not jump to conclusions, Naruto declared, trying to lighten the mood. We don't know anything yet. With nothing left to say on the topic, the trio dispersed in order to prepare for the trip. This looks like it, Kakashi remarked as his three subordinates followed him down a dusty path leading to a small community. Before we start our investigation, let's arrange a place to stay this evening. There was but one small hotel in this town, and it appeared to be rather old and rundown, as did most of the facilities located in this rural region. So we're staying here? The disgruntled Kunoichi asked upon seeing the shabby building. This is the only place that offers lodging, the team captain explained to his subordinates. I know it's not great, but it beats sleeping in the woods. After speaking to the woman who was in charge of reservations, the squad went in search of room 211 on the second floor. The room was rather bland and small, for there were only 2 beds. However, it was the biggest room available, and the Leaf Village would only pay for one room per team. What are the sleeping arrangements going to be? Sakura asked. She was the only girl on the team, and there was no way she would share one of the beds with Naruto or Kakashi-sensei, and Sasuke would probably refuse to share one with her. Kakashi sighed at the inconvenience. One of us will have to sleep on the floor, I suppose, the man informed the male genin. It wouldn't be appropriate for one of us to share a bed with Sakura. I'd gladly share a bed with you, Sakura. Naruto shot a perverted smile at his female teammate, which resulted in a bruising punch to his cheek. It was just a joke, he mumbled, rubbing his face where the girl had slugged him. You should have figured out not to say stuff like that a long time ago. Sakura defended her action. Naruto, Sasuke started, I think that you should sleep on the floor. That way, he would at least get part of a bed, even though Kakashi would get the other half. It was still a better option than a filthy hotel floor, though. Why me? Naruto protested. I think Kakashi-sensei should sleep on the floor. He's always late, so he deserves it. That's not a bad idea. Sakura agreed. Sasuke glared at Naruto. Then we would have to sleep in the same bed. If that's such a big deal, then you sleep on the floor. The blonde stammered. Don't tell Sasuke to sleep on the floor. Sakura gritted her teeth and squinted at Naruto. Guys, the Jonin tried to stop their bickering. Hey, you are so full of yourself. At least I'm not a loser. Naruto, Sakura, Sasuke. Kakashi shouted over them, finally grasping their attention. We can figure this out later. Right now, we need to start our assignment. There's a woman named Atoha that we need to meet with before it gets dark. Her brother went missing from this town last week according to Lady Hokage's report. Let's do it, Naruto said, throwing his bag down onto one of the beds, as if to claim it for later. Sasuke snorted at his action and placed his pack on the dresser. Unfortunately, it seemed that the aspect of teamwork was not advancing too smoothly. You must be Kakashi Hatake? A young brunette asked when the group of shinobi appeared at her front door. Yes, and you are Atoha? I am. Lady Tsunade informed me that you would be coming, the young woman stated. I used to work at the hospital in the Leaf before moving out here, so I am familiar with the village as well as the current Hokage. Please, come in. Thank you, the platinum-haired man said kindly through his mask. He introduced his subordinates before getting down to business. You are here to investigate the situation with the missing children, correct? Atoha questioned. Yes, Kakashi confirmed. We were informed that your brother was one of the victims. A look of despair came to the brunette's face. He is, though I'm not sure who took him or why. When did this occur? Kakashi inquired while his three students listened intently. Last Tuesday night. San, that's my brother's name, decided to stay out later than usual with a friend of his. According to his friend's mother, San left to return home around 12, but he never came back. She choked out. It was clear that speaking of this predicament was difficult for her. Normally I would just think he went to the hot springs or something, but there have been other cases of missing children. And that was well over a week ago. I'm terribly sorry, the eldest man offered his sympathy. If you don't mind, could you perhaps give us a description of San? I would like to see if there are similarities in the missing victims. Sure. Atoha tried to calm herself. He was 14 years old, about average height for his age. He had dark hair and dark eyes. And he was rather pale, as well. Naruto and Sakura both side-glanced at Sasuke, who fit that description pretty well, apart from the age factor. Thank you, Kakashi sincerely said. I believe that is all we need from you at the current time. We will be sure to inform you if we discover anything. Don't worry, lady, Naruto assured the woman. I'm sure your brother is fine. She smiled at the blonde's words and gave them all her highest regards. Once they were out on the street again, Sakura turned to face Naruto. Look, Naruto, I know you were trying to make her feel better, but you shouldn't give her false hope. We have no idea if San is okay, or even alive. Her tone was not nasty but rather disappointed, not from Naruto's positive words, but due to the sad reality that most kidnappings resulted in. There is another person we should talk to today. The Jonin broke the awkward silence. His name is Nejiri. His son, similar to Atoha's brother, has been gone for a few days and… Excuse me, a voice came from behind their group. Are you discussing the missing children? Kakashi turned around to face a middle-aged woman. I didn't mean to interrupt. She said sheepishly. You all must be the Leaf Shinobi we've been hearing about. That would be correct, Kakashi responded, not entirely sure why this woman was bothering them at the moment. The answer came quickly. I have some information about that. You see, I am the leader of this town and have received quite a bit of information about this issue. Oh, I'm sorry, the Jonin replied, I wasn't aware of your position. That's quite all right, the lady responded. I only recently received that title due to my husband's passing. It's not shocking that you big city folk aren't aware of the politics in a little town like this. If you have some time to spare, I would be more than happy to tell you everything I know about the kidnappings. That would be great. Let us go to my office to speak. It would be inappropriate to talk in the middle of the street like this. The woman said as she began to lead the way to the town's hall. Allow me to properly introduce myself, she said, taking a seat behind small desk in a cramped office. My name is Kei Yamada. I have been leading this village for about 8 months, for I took over after my husband passed away. Shortly after his death, people began to notice children disappearing. It wasn't happening in just our town, though. Some of the other communities surrounding ours were experiencing the same problem, and no one knew why. We still don't. Collectively, however, we found that the only children that had mysteriously vanished were boys between the ages of 10 and 15. Not a single female has been accounted for, nor has anyone outside of that age range. Another thing we noticed was that the boys all had similar features. It seems whoever is targeting these children tends to go for young males with a pale complexion along with dark hair and eyes. Much like this child. The woman ended her statement by gesturing to Sasuke, who received another look from his other young teammates. You should be cautious out there, with the situation as it is, you could be a target. The woman warned the Uchiha child. You don't have to worry about Sasuke, Kakashi informed her, he is capable of taking care of himself. Naruto snorted at that. Everyone always praised Sasuke. Just be careful, Sasuke. Kei repeated. This is a dangerous place for someone like you. The leader looked back at Kakashi. That is all the information I have right now, but I will relay any updates I may receive. Thank you. You have been a tremendous help to us. The Jonin's eye curved up to allude to a genuine smile. Come on, guys, it will be dark soon, and we still need to speak with Nejiri. Kakashi thanked her once more before taking his team to meet the other civilian of this tiny town. As the 4 shinobi walked through the door, Kei Yamada noticed a family crest on the back of Sasuke's shirt. It was the Uchiha family crest. Once the shinobi had evacuated the premise, a shadowy figure appeared behind Kei. Did you find another one? I did, the woman replied. When I was about to approach them, I could tell that this boy would be very good for our business. But it wasn't until after they left that I realized his true potential. That one is an Uchiha, and I'm sure people would pay much more to play with someone as rare as him. I think this little plan is really going to start paying off. Looks like you better be careful, Sasuke, Naruto joked, you could get kidnapped, too. Shut up, you loser. Sasuke spat back. Yeah, Naruto, Sakura screamed. This is serious. There are real people in danger here, so don't joke about it. Why do you always team up against me? Naruto asked his pink-haired comrade. Because Sasuke is smarter than you. She shot Naruto's hopes down before giving Sasuke a look of admiration. That's enough bickering, their teacher scolded, we're here. Nejiri's story was similar to that of Itoha's. It seems that his son fit the description that Mrs. Yamada provided. A pale boy with dark hair and eyes. However, with the sun going down, Kakashi's team would have to wait until morning to continue their investigation, for they would not be able to question people during the night, especially with the citizens fearing their children's safety. Once the team was back at the inn for the evening, another debate began. So who gets a bed and who gets the floor? Naruto asked his fellow teammates. I want a bed, Sakura declared. She was the only girl on the squad and felt she deserved one. Besides, she needed her beauty sleep to look good for Sasuke. That's fine, Sakura. I would also like a bed, and since I am the sensei, I will claim one. Kakashi said. Naruto and Sasuke met gazes before shouting in unison. I get it. Loser, why should you get it? What have you done to deserve it? Saved your ass a bunch of times. Naruto said, recalling the incidents with Gaara, Orochimaru, and Haku. You would have drowned or busted your head open if it weren't for me, and let's not forget the time I almost died to save you. Sasuke combated. Naruto's eyes turned angrier. I've told you 1,000 times that I didn't want you to do that. Shut up, loser. I did so. Sakura and Kakashi-sensei looked at one another. How long are they going to do this? The pink girl asked, growing tired of the constant rivalry between her two teammates. Kakashi cleared his throat and sighed before speaking. You're both sleeping on the floor. What? Naruto shrieked. But sensei. Sasuke glared at Kakashi to show that he agreed that the older man's solution was stupid. All you do is make rude remarks or yell at each other. It's ridiculous, and I don't really want to share a bed with either of you hotheads. He received nasty looks from both of his male students, but it did not sway his decision. The space between the beds could not comfortably fit one of the boys, so they had to lay side by side at the foot of one of the mattresses. Move over some, Sasuke, Naruto whispered. I'm up against the dresser. Get over it, Sasuke mumbled wearily. He wanted to sleep. Naruto was frustrated at the current situation. He stretched his hands out and, accidentally, smacked Sasuke in the face, which caused the Uchiha to become angry. Oh sorry, Naruto said sarcastically, I didn't mean to hit you. It's no big deal, Sasuke replied, also in a whisper while swiftly kicking Naruto in the shin with most of his strength. Hey, Naruto screamed, breaking the mostly silent room. What was that for? Shut up, Naruto, a girl's voice shrieked. I'm trying to sleep. But Sasuke kicked me. I wouldn't have done that if you didn't hit me. You wouldn't move. I don't have room to move, you loser. You could have just told me that instead of. Naruto, Sasuke, that's enough. Kakashi groaned in anger, as he was awoken by yet another argument. All you have done the whole day is argue. I don't want to hear it anymore. You're teammates, so start acting like it. Kakashi often told them to stop fighting, but he rarely got as irritated as he was at the moment. It was probably because this time, the boys caused him to wake up in the middle of the night over a silly dispute. This is your fault, the blonde whispered to Sasuke. My fault? Sasuke asked quietly. If you weren't such a loser, this wouldn't have been a problem. Stop calling me a loser, you idiot. At least I know what I'm doing. You barely graduated from the academy. Come again? Naruto hissed. That's right, you're just a dead last loser. And you're stuck up and obnoxious. The volume of this conversation was slowly rising. Yeah, I'm the obnoxious one. You think you're just so much better than me, don't you? Basically. Well, you're not. Both of you, go sleep in the hall. Kakashi growled. We are on a mission, and if we are all sleep deprived due to your foolish arguments, this assignment is going to take much longer than it should, so get in the hall. You'll have plenty of space to spread out, and I don't want to hear either of you complaining anymore. The younger males grumbled but didn't really want Kakashi to be mad at them, so they gathered blankets, pillows, etc., and went into the hall. Naruto claimed the spot closer to their room, and Sasuke took the spot on the opposite wall. If you weren't so loud, we wouldn't be out here, Sasuke stated. If you didn't constantly insult me, we wouldn't be out here. If you didn't have so many things to insult, we wouldn't be out here. If you didn't. This is ridiculous, Naruto sighed. Negative words ceased to exchange as Naruto started to think about the information his team had gathered. Hey, Sasuke, what do you want now? The Uchiha glanced over at his blonde friend and rival. What do you think is going on around here? I mean with the missing boys? Sasuke adjusted his pillow before answering. I don't know. We don't have enough to figure that out yet. But don't you think it's weird that whoever it is only taking people that look like you? I haven't really thought about that much, but that part did seem strange. Do you think that they'll come after you? If they try, they won't get me. I'm not weak enough to get kidnapped. Sasuke snorted. Yeah, okay. Naruto agreed that Sasuke could hold off a bunch of thug kidnappers. It still concerned him, though. I'm going to sleep now. Me too. Naruto yawned and stretched his arms upon waking up the next morning. The window at the end of the hall allowed light to shine in his face, forcing him to rise with the sun. However, it suddenly dawned on the boy that a certain presence was missing. He looked to his right and noticed a certain Uchiha was missing. The blonde found it strange that Sasuke's bedding was still out in the hall. That boy usually picked up after himself. Naruto didn't think much of it, though. Sasuke had probably just gone to the bathroom or hot springs located at the rear of the inn. Thinking about the warm water, Naruto got the desire to go soak for a while. Without changing out of his pajamas, the blonde headed towards the back of the building. The steam rising up made him eager to jump right in, and he did just that. Back on the second floor, Sakura and Kakashi were just beginning to wake up. Sakura, can you go wake up Sasuke and Naruto? The Jonin politely asked. Of course, sensei, the girl replied. She loved the sight of Sasuke in the morning. Flinging the door open with anticipation, Sakura set her eyes on nothing but two piles of blankets. They aren't out there, she informed her teacher. I'll bet they went to hot springs. I've heard several people speak of how luxurious they're in this town. Did they have to leave their stuff out in the hall, though? Sakura wondered as she generously brought it back into the room. We should get ready to go out today, the Jonin instructed, then we can get Naruto and Sasuke if they don't come back up before then. Several minutes later, both teacher and student were ready for the day's adventure. Kakashi opened the door to exit as Naruto was strolling back towards the room. Hey Kakashi-sensei, hey Sakura. He smiled radiantly. Good morning, Naruto. He noticed that the other boy was not with him. Where's Sasuke? You mean he's not with you? Naruto asked. We figured you both went downstairs, Sakura said. I thought so too, but he wasn't at the hot spring when I was. I thought he was probably back in the room. The three started to get an eerie feeling. So you haven't seen him? Kakashi asked, a bit of panic on the edge of his voice. Not since last night, Naruto said. When I woke up, he had already gone somewhere. It was obvious that they were all thinking the same thing. Sasuke fit the description of the missing boys perfectly, and now the Uchiha had vanished. Pakun and his pack of fellow ninja dogs had been searching for the missing Uchiha, but his trail could not be found. It was as if someone erased his scent. Sakura was trying not to cry over Sasuke's disappearance. Kakashi-sensei, what do you think happened to him? I would assume he was targeted due to his appearance, and since he's not near here, he was probably taken by whoever is behind the kidnappings. Kakashi admitted, if he hadn't kicked Naruto and Sasuke into the hall, would the Uchiha still be with them? He felt the answer had to be yes. What are we going to do? Naruto inquired. We have to find him. It seems that whoever has been taking the children is clever. Not even my ninja hounds could sense him, Kakashi admitted. The best thing to do would be to continue the investigation. It would be pointless to just blindly search for Sasuke. This person or group clearly knows how to hide their tracks, so we need to find some sort of lead before anything else. But Sasuke could be in danger. If this guy got a hold of him, he must be good. Sasuke could be. We will find him, Naruto. The Jonin stopped his subordinate from speaking. Let's get going. We'll start by informing the village leader. That boy has been taken? Yamada, leader of the little town, asked with false shock. Yes, it happened last night at some point after 2:30, Kakashi responded. I'm so sorry, the woman said. That is terrible. However, I did receive some information that may be able to help you. She pulled a folder out from the cabinet behind her and returned to her seat. This came in early this morning. There is a town several miles to the south of ours. There have been no accounts of missing persons, but someone saw a mysterious figure roaming the streets before dusk 2 days ago. She informed them. Here is the file we received about said person. Perhaps going to that community would aid you? Kakashi took the file and scanned it with his exposed eye. It's definitely worth checking into. I'm terribly sorry that I don't have more to offer you. I'll let you know if I get any more information in. She smiled as they rose to leave. I wish you the best of luck. Hopefully this will lead you to something. We will try our best to settle this, Kakashi replied. Thank you again, ma'am. When the small team had exited the building, a familiar presence appeared in the room. You have been doing a magnificent job at keeping those shinobi off our trail. A man in the shadows appeared behind K. People are so easy to deceive. Yes, the woman responded, turning to the man. They trust me now, and they will hopefully be gone for a few days now. They will return, the male's deep voice replied as he stepped from the shadows. When they don't find anything in that pathetic little town you sent them to, they will come back. Kay rose from her seat and placed her arms around the muscular shoulders of the other figure. At least we can spend the time there gone planning the next diversion. The man smirked, but it was not kind. His grin was twisted in a menacing way. You were right about the Uchiha kid. He is quite the treasure. I thought you would like him. I knew he would bring in a lot of money from the moment I saw him. The town leader smiled back as she seductively ran her hands through the man's hair. Have you started his training yet? He's still unconscious, so I will postpone that until tonight. The 3 remaining team members quickly ran through the dense forest to the town in the south. They had been charging forward for hours, and the other civilization was now within their sight. This establishment resembled the other, though it was slightly more rundown than Kei's village. Let's go find the person in charge, Kakashi instructed. He went up to a random person and asked where said leader may be and was pointed in the direction of a large building. The structure looked nice from a distance, but the closer these shinobi got to it, the more they could tell that it was in rather sad shape. Though, it must have been quite the building at one point in the past. Can I help you with something? A woman asked from behind the desk directly inside of the front doors of said establishment. We would like to speak with whomever is in charge of this town, Kakashi stated. We are shinobi from the Leaf Village, and we were instructed to investigate this area. Please wait a moment. The young lady smiled and walked down a hall. She returned several moments later. Mr. Tanaka's office is located at the end of this hallway. He is the mayor of our village. As they walked towards the decorative doors which held Mr. Tanaka's office, Naruto couldn't help but let his mind wander. What if Sasuke was dead? He had been sleeping right next to Naruto, yet the boy didn't notice that he was gone until morning. It pained him to think that perhaps he could have prevented a potential disaster for the Uchiha. Hello, a plump, old man said. He rose from his fancy armchair and walked over to greet the shinobi. I'm Akio Tanaka. I heard that there were Leaf shinobi in the area. You're conducting an investigation on the missing children, yes? That's correct. We were informed that no one has been kidnapped from your village as of yet, Kakashi responded. However, Kei Yamada gave me a report about a strange man in this town. Do you know who that person is? That guy wasn't involved with this, the fat man replied. He was a simple shoplifter, but with the current situation, we felt the need to report his presence. Speaking of Mrs. K, how is she holding up? She seemed to be doing all right, considering the circumstances. I just feel so bad for that poor woman. She has had so much to deal with lately, old Akio lamented. The three ninjas also felt rather sorry for the woman. She told us about her husband. It must be hard to take on that much responsibility, especially after losing your spouse. Sakura said, and only about a year after her son was killed. What a tragedy, Mr. Tanaka added. She lost her whole family in less than 2 years, you know. Her son? Kakashi asked. The woman never mentioned anything about that. I see she didn't tell you. I don't blame her, though. It must be difficult to talk about. Do you think you could tell us what happened? The Jonin inquired. That information could prove useful. I suppose I could, considering that you are looking into other cases concerning young boys. Maybe the predator is the same man. Now, where to begin? The man shut his eyes to think. Her son was about 13 at the time. He was taking some supplies to another village when an unknown man attacked him. They found his body in the woods a few days later. It was clear that the kid went through a lot of physical and UAL abuse. Her husband, Kazaki Yamada, was the one in charge of the village when that happened. The tragic and sudden loss of his son took an extreme toll on him, and in turn, that town started to fall apart. It became a community of poverty which caused the civilians to resent Kazaki, even though he had suffered a great loss. Several months passed before he took his own life, leaving Mrs. K to look after the village by herself as well as deal with the death of her only remaining loved one. She managed to stay strong, though, and that little town has been slowly coming out of its sorry state with her guidance. Shortly after she took control, however, more boys around the same age as her son have been vanishing, making it more difficult for her to care for the people under her jurisdiction. The story was over, and it left a strong impact on Kakashi, Naruto, and Sakura. That's so awful, Naruto muttered. It really is. The man facing them agreed. Thank you for sharing that with us, Kakashi said, carefully thinking over the tale. I believe that the man involved with her son may be connected, but I suppose since there haven't been kidnappings in this town, we should probably move along. Sure, the elder replied. I want this situation cleared up, so I won't be holding you up. So now what do we do, sensei? Sakura asked once they were in the sunlight again. The Jonin wasn't really sure how to answer since this lead fell through. They weren't detectives, after all. I'm not entirely sure, he admitted. I think we should go back to the Leaf for now. What about Sasuke? Are we just supposed to give up on finding him? Naruto protested. I feel the same way, Naruto, especially after hearing that story, but we have no idea where he is, Kakashi responded. There are other teams investigating the same situation that we are. So our best chance at helping Sasuke is by going back and finding out if anything has been reported by those teams. Sakura could feel tears trying to roll down her cheeks. She held them back as best as she could. How could they just leave when Sasuke could be going through hell? Isn't there something else we can do? She choked out, trying to keep the water in her eyes. Not at the moment, Sakura. He looked at the girl struggling to maintain a calm face. Sasuke's going to be fine. He's been through difficult situations in the past and he's a tough kid. Try not to worry. He probably shouldn't have said anything, though, as he had no guarantee of his statement. Terrified screams were the first thing Sasuke heard when he came to. His eyes flung open to see what was going on, and to his horror, it was an atrocious scene. The room was large and dark. The walls and floor were made from concrete, or maybe cement. The boy wasn't sure. Chain link fences were located everywhere, creating individual cages for each boy located in this facility. This place resembled an abandoned animal shelter. For all this Uchiha knew, it was one. There were several men pacing outside of the cells, watching the prisoners, some of which were being beaten or even ally assaulted by the older males, causing them to scream in panic. It was then that Sasuke noticed his left hand was chained to the wall, making escape more difficult. He attempted to use Chidori to break free, but he could not muster up any chakra, for the cuff on his wrist was sucking it out of his body. The Uchiha began to panic. How did he even get to this awful place? Was he going to go through the torture he was witnessing? Then it dawned on him. All of the boys he saw were around his age with similar physical characteristics. They all had pale skin and dark eyes and hair, just like him. Someone must have done something to him while he slept and then brought him here. That was the only thing that made sense, though he never thought this was happening to the poor missing children. And he never thought he would be joining them. But here he sat, not sure what to do or think. Looks like you finally woke up, a gruff man spoke, making Sasuke's eyes dart to the locked door. I heard that we were getting in a new kid, but I didn't know he would look like this. The disgusting man opened the chain-link door and starting to approach the Uchiha. Sasuke wasn't entirely sure what would happen, but based on his surroundings, it wasn't going to be good. The older man began to undo his pants as Sasuke pressed himself tightly against the wall, trying to get away from his impending doom. Don't touch him, someone stated firmly to Sasuke's assaulter, being him to the training room instead. Yes, sir, the first male replied, quickly buttoning his trousers. He took a key from his pocket and unlocked one end of the chain attached to Sasuke's wrist. The Uchiha decided not to make a break for it. There were sleazy men all over the place just waiting to jump on a kid for misbehaving, or even just looking at them the wrong way. Come on, boy, the guy pulled Sasuke from the ground, looks like you're getting some special treatment. The Raven did not speak a word as he was led to a metal door on the back wall. As he walked, he saw countless dark eyes watch, each pair with clear horror showing. The metal barrier creaked open as the man holding Sasuke flung him inside. Here you are, sir. Thank you. Sasuke recognized the voice as the man who kept the other from touching him. I'm glad that you have finally woken up. I was beginning to get impatient. What do you want with me? Sasuke hissed. Who are you? I apologize, it was rather rude to not properly introduce myself, the man said. I am Kazaki Yamada. Yamada. That surname sounded so familiar to the young boy, but in his state of confusion and fear, he could not place it. What do I want with you? The muscular man continued. Well, Sasuke Uchiha, I am the owner of this fine establishment. The men you saw walking around out there work for me. They help keep my boys in their place. You see, I rent out the children here to anyone who would like their services. Sasuke's eyes widened as he started to figure out just what services this man was speaking of. And you, child, are going to bring in quite a bit of money. Though I haven't seen you fully exposed, I'm sure that body is as divine as your face. You are also of the Uchiha clan. On top of your looks, people would be willing to pay top dollar for even 10 minutes of with you. Sasuke took a step back towards the door. I'm not doing that, he spat at Kazaki. Don't worry, young one, the man said. I'm not going to put you up until you are good and ready. I need to break you first. The boy was appalled by this. There was no way in hell that anyone was going to touch him in a UAL way. Unfortunately, that was not in his power to decide. Kazaki slowly made his way to the Uchiha boy, who continued to back up until he was pressed against cold metal. Any jutsu was useless since the kid was out of chakra, so he took to using his fists. That won't be appreciated by clients, they don't want to wrestle you down. The man grabbed the wrist without a cuff and twisted it until a loud crack was heard. Sasuke cried out in pain as his joint was broken. There's more where that came from. Learn your lesson quickly and I won't break any more bones. Sasuke began to pant heavily from fear and the pain shooting up his arm, yet he did not stop trying to shove the man away. It's a shame that such a nice-looking boy is putting up a fight. Kazaki fisted Sasuke's hair and forced his face on the ground. He jerked Sasuke around so that his rear was against the older male's solidifying member. Wasting no time, the man ripped off the Uchiha's white shorts and boxers, leaving his bottom exposed. "Stop it," Sasuke yelped. "Let go. How is this man so much stronger than Sasuke? He wasn't a shinobi, right? Keep your mouth closed unless I tell you to open it." Sasuke heard that along with a zipper sliding down. The next sense he recognized was touch when something dry and firm was placed against his entrance. Sasuke had never been in this situation before, but he figured most people put some sort of lubricant on. This man did not, though. He slammed himself in, completely dry. The Uchiha's breathing picked up into labored gasps, followed by an atrocious scream. The smell of his own blood and the feel of his body ripping from the inside out made him lightheaded. He wanted to vomit, he wanted to cry, he wanted to pass out. Instead, he received another forced pound in his behind. "Moan," the man instructed, but Sasuke was in too much blinding pain to listen or care. He wouldn't have done it anyway. Kazaki was still groping Sasuke's hair. With it, he pulled his head from the ground. "I told you to moan. Tell me that you want more." The man's voice was demanding and menacing. I won't." Sasuke managed to whimper. Kazaki Yamada pulled his still hard erection out of Sasuke. "No?" he asked. "You're not the first kid I've dealt with who refused me. How about I jam a knife up your ass instead?" He got up, letting the bloody mess fall to the floor. Opening a small cabinet in the front corner, Kazaki saw the blade he was looking for. Sasuke could hear his footsteps returning. He was then hoisted back up onto his knees. The next feeling was excruciating. The end of the razor was inserted into his already bleeding hole. "Do you want it up there further, or are you going to listen to me?" Sasuke couldn't speak, he was so scared and pained. He didn't want to obey this man, but at the same time, this torture was too much for him. "What was that?" the man asked. "The boys around here don't mumble. Clients don't like it. This'll teach you to speak up." The rest if the knife sliced up Sasuke's tight ring of muscle. His breath hitched and he began to choke. How could someone do this to people? It was sick and twisted and purely disgusting. Luckily, the razor was dropped to the floor after one thrust, but a stiff member replaced it. "Now beg me to give you more, unless you want that blade back in your ass." All sense of Uchiha pride was lost. It was either that or even greater pain. "Please," Sasuke said quietly. "I told you to speak up once, do I have to do it again?" Kazaki asked ferociously. "Please," Sasuke shouted. Being loud was not a problem at the moment as this boy had screams clawing to escape from the agony. "Please what? Be more specific," the older male growled, keeping his hard member sheathed inside of Sasuke. "Give me more. Please give me more." That triggered the guy on top to violently thrust in and out of Sasuke's heat. The Uchiha bit his lip so that he would not cry out. The fear of not being told to open his mouth made it possible to do so. He endured the horrible feeling until a warm liquid mixed with his blood, signaling the climax of his trainer, who roughly pulled out afterwards. "On your knees." The next command came. Sasuke was utterly exhausted from being relentlessly pounded into, but his fear of more forced him up. His face was met by Kazaki's flaccid member. Sasuke just looked at it, he didn't know what to do. He had never done this before and never planned to, he was not gay. "What are you waiting for?" "I don't know what to do," Sasuke replied. The elder rolled his eyes. "What do you think? Suck on it, boy." Sasuke was hesitant, but slowly enveloped the thing in his mouth. He felt so gross. It didn't seem natural to him, mostly because he was being forced to do it. Impatient hips thrusted the remainder of the length into Sasuke's mouth, causing him to gag. He pulled back for air, but his head was grabbed and pushed back down. This happened until more of the white liquid filled his mouth. He was told to swallow it and did. It had a foul taste that made Sasuke feel sicker than before. Finally, the man closed up his pants, sealing off his manhood. He took a look at the Uchiha and ripped off his shirt. He was now fully naked like the rest of the victims locked away here. Now then, Kazaki returned to a more civilized manner. I will be training you for the next few days. This will go on until I think you are prepared to meet the needs of our clients, and a word of advice: do not disobey me again. You will pay a far greater price than just that little knife. You're back much sooner than I expected, so Lady Tsunade looked over Kakashi's team. Where is Sasuke? We don't know, the group leader informed the new Hokage, but we have an idea of what happened to him. Go on, the recently elected Hokage said. The cases involving missing children are all similar. Every child has been a male between the ages of 10 and 15, and they all bear similar characteristics: dark hair and dark eyes, as well as a pale complexion. So they all look somewhat like Sasuke. She put the pieces together. Where did you learn this from, Kakashi? The town official, K. Yamada, informed us. He said. Yamada. Tsunade mused. I know that name. She formerly lived in this village with her husband, Kazaki. She is from the Leaf Village? He asked. It seemed like that woman kept quite a bit out of her introduction, though it probably wasn't relevant. Yes, her husband was a shinobi. He was a chunin if my memory is correct. I heard that they moved away after his father died during a mission. They decided that raising a family would not be safe in a predominantly ninja village and relocated to a smaller town where he became the highest official. Raising their son in this village would have been safer. He was killed about 2 years ago, Kakashi informed her. Has any information from the other teams come back yet? Not yet, though Team 10 should be coming back from their mission tomorrow. They were also looking into this matter, Tsunade replied. They could have some new resources that could help us find Sasuke and the other missing boys. The group had left Tsunade's office a short time ago. They were now gathered at the bridge in which missions were initiated. Kakashi-sensei, Sakura began. Do you think that Sasuke is going to be okay? His eyes curved to express a smile, but his mouth remained the same. He was sure. We can hope. Besides, it's only been 12 hours. The odds are in his favor. Yeah, Sasuke wouldn't let anything happen to him. Naruto remembered Sasuke's promise to kill his brother before dying. He'll be okay. Sometimes, false hope could be a good thing. The following morning, Naruto was all too eager to start his day. Asuma-sensei's team was coming back today, and they could have information about the missing boys, including his best friend. As he rushed down the streets of village, he saw Sakura leaving her dwelling. Hey there, Sakura. Naruto caught up to his friend. Are you going to see Granny, too? Oh hi, Naruto. The girl looked desolate, probably over Sasuke's disappearance. Yeah, Asuma-sensei's team should have gotten back already, so I figured I should go over there. Mind if I walk with you, since we are going to the same place? Naruto asked, hoping she would oblige. Sakura nodded, giving him permission to join her. The two young ninjas were shocked when they arrived at Lady Tsunade's office, for Kakashi was already there. This man never beat them to a location. He always showed up hours late. Naruto and Sakura then noticed Asuma, Shikamaru, Choji, and Ino were also in the room. Hey guys. Choji exclaimed while eating a bag of his favorite chips. Hi Choji. Naruto responded in his usual happy state. Hey. Ino examined the two members of Team 7. Where's Sasuke? He. Sakura tried to explain but couldn't force herself to say that Sasuke had been a victim of the kidnapper. What? Ino asked, becoming a bit frantic. He went missing. Kakashi intervened. He was most likely taken by whoever has been kidnapping the children. The three young genin from the other squad looked at the masked man with a mixture of shock and confusion. Sasuke got kidnapped? How? Did you find anything out about the guy who took him? Asuma asked. No, we didn't, Kakashi admitted. He covered his tracks so even my ninja hounds couldn't find him. Sounds like he must know what he's doing, then. What did you find out, Asuma? The Hokage asked. Anything will be useful information. It's not much, but we heard some guys talking about a brothel with a lot of kids in it. Everyone grew pale at how terribly disgusting that was. We tried to find out more, but the guys wouldn't talk. I assume it was because they saw our headbands and knew that kind of thing is against the law. We didn't have the authorization to force it out of them either since it's not our village. Did you catch anything about where it is or who runs it? Kakashi asked, fearing that Sasuke could be there at this moment. I think they said something about the place only having boys, Shikamaru added, but after that, they noticed that we were eavesdropping. The children who have disappeared have all been male under the age of 15. The silver-haired man noted. It was becoming apparent that Sasuke was probably located in this place. All of the victims also had similar physical characteristics, too. They all have traits similar to Sasuke, dark hair and dark eyes, as well as pale skin. Some lady told us about a boy fitting that description. Ino thought aloud. She said that the son of some official in Anther Town died 2 years ago after being tortured. She said that he had those characteristics. Yeah, Shoji joined in after finishing his last sacred chip. I think his name was Haru Yamada. Yamada? The two other genin asked in unison. That's that lady's name, Naruto shouted. So her son was the first target. Kakashi said, putting the pieces of the puzzle together, though he was blind to the truth behind this matter. This is turning into quite a bit of information. Kakashi, Tsunade said, take your team back to that town and ask Kei Yamada about her son's death. Chances are that his killer is also behind the brothel. Try to find out who that man is. I didn't see you come in, Kei said from her seat as a man approached her. How is the Uchiha coming along? He's breaking. I can see it in his eyes, the man replied. It won't be long. Are you making him suffer? The female asked, an angry edge on her voice. Yes, I guarantee that. Good. I want them all to feel the same pain that Haru felt. They should all be forced to endure the same pain as our son. I couldn't agree more, my love. Sasuke was slumped against the same wall his chakra-binding cuffs were linked to. His training left him in a bloody, broken mess that was only capable of slouching on the cold floor below. The dim lights that shone over all of the boys suddenly grew brighter, illuminating the filthy interior of this building. When the hanging lights became radiant, people began to enter the facility. These men were not like the thugs watching the panicked children, for they did not work here. These men were the clients. This was the first time Sasuke had seen the system of operation around here, and it was definitely not pleasant to watch, especially when he was aware that the same thing would soon be happening to him. The various customers strolled around as they examined the young, naked males. If one caught their eye, an employee would be notified. The unfortunate victim would then be hauled to the back of the large room and thrown into a smaller one where the client was waiting to do whatever he pleased with the child. Sasuke was located near the back corner on the right-hand side. Kazaki informed him that he would have a more visible chamber once he was tamed, but for now, it was better to keep him out of sight, for he was not quite ready to be used. This did not stop one person from approaching him, though. Look at you. A grubby man examined Sasuke's exposed figure. You look like fun. He called one of the employed thugs over. I think I'll take this one for an hour or so. The other man looked at Sasuke. He's not available yet, this one's a new arrival, and he hasn't gone through enough training yet. I see that you have spotted our newest addition. Kazaki's voice came from behind the men. Sasuke hated the way everyone was talking about him. They made him sound like some sort of product for sale at a store. He's worth at least twice as much as the others here. This one is an Uchiha. An Uchiha, huh? The customer replied. I'll pay double for him. But he's not, the guard started, only to be interrupted. We have a deal then. Please go to room number 4. I'll deliver him to you in a few moments. The Yamada cut in. The overweight, grubby client headed towards the back of the large building and entered a door. The employee trying to discourage the sale was dismissed, and Kazaki entered Sasuke's small cage. I was planning on taking more time to train you, Sasuke, he started, but seeing as people are willing to pay this much for you when they're aware that you aren't ready. Well, that's a deal I can't pass up. The Uchiha's expression was a mixture of anger and fear. However, he was mostly afraid of what this client would do to him. And let me make one thing clear, Kazaki added while unchaining Sasuke to take him to room 4, you are not to mess this up. If I hear one complaint or even the slightest bit of displeasure from that man, you are going to pay for it. Is that clear? Sasuke did not give a verbal reply. He didn't want to speak to this man. This man brought him here to be part of a brothel, so how was he supposed to just communicate on a regular level with him? When the boy refused to answer, Kazaki roughly grabbed his face, forcing Sasuke to look straight at him. Is that clear? He repeated, this time with a nasty edge to his voice. Yes, Sasuke mumbled in defeat. He thought that his answer would make his tormentor happy, but he was proven wrong with a sharp slap to his face. I believe I already told you this. The boys around here do not mumble. Speak clearly. I'm sorry, Sasuke apologized out of fear. There was nothing he could do in this situation. His chakra was depleted, and he was weak from being tormented. His only hope lied in the hands of the Leaf Village. That's better. Now let's get you to that fine customer, Kazaki continued while pulling Sasuke from the floor. The Uchiha was extremely nervous as the tall metal door grew closer, the distance becoming shorter with each step. Finally, the door opened, and Sasuke was pushed inside. The true horror of the situation did not set in until Kazaki latched the door, leaving Sasuke alone with this slimy-looking man. He was sweaty, and his hair looked slick with grease. It was no surprise that this guy got his release from a place like this. It was probably close to impossible for him to find it elsewhere. Sasuke glanced around the room. It was his first time in one of these designated rooms. There was a bed with recently changed sheets. He had seen the workers switch them out the previous night, probably due to the liquids that covered them. You just going to stand there? The man asked when Sasuke didn't move. Come on, kid, show me a good time. The younger male didn't know what to do. He had only gone through this once before, and he was forced into it. Not that he was willing this time, but before, Kazaki put him in all of the positions he was supposed to be in. Suddenly, Sasuke found himself being thrown towards the mattress with the obese man hovering over him. The young Uchiha knew that these experiences would be horrible, but having this man even look at him made the boy want to vomit. Before another moment passed, the man was beginning to undress himself. Once that was over with, he moved on top of Sasuke and started to kiss him. Sasuke wasn't sure what to do, so he just remained still. There was no way in hell that he was going to return the touches, but refusing them would surely result in some form of punishment. Something hard brushed against the Uchiha's leg. That was a touch he had only felt once before. This man was already hard, and he didn't hesitate any longer than necessary before flipping Sasuke over. He continued to lay there like a rag doll atop the bed while this repulsive man shoved his erection deep into the smaller boy's body. Sasuke let out a quiet cry of pain, but the completely sweat-soaked man above found the noise to be arousing. Let me hear more, the older guy panted. Too afraid of what would happen if he did not, Sasuke let another sound escape his lips. He kept this up throughout session, feeling utterly disgusted every time he made himself moan, but the fear overran the disgust. It seemed to take forever before this nasty male reached the climax he was so desperate to reach. In reality, it did not take more than a matter of minutes, but for the pained Uchiha, it took an eternity. Moving to the side of the bed, the man looked over Sasuke, who was raggedly breathing and bleeding. You're pretty good looking, kid, but expect no less from the Uchiha clan. That's right, a boy from the almighty Uchiha clan was being subjected to this. Sasuke couldn't bear the idea of it. Show me what else you can do, since that last bit was mostly me. I'll show you something, Sasuke said as he mustered all of his strength. His words made the sick male smile, but that expression was wiped away when Sasuke punched him in the nose. It took all the remaining strength from his ragged body to do that, but it felt so good to hit this grotesque being. That shot was aimed quite well, too, for the man's nose was dripping blood. What the fuck? The guy screamed. He quickly brought his hand to stop the bleeding as well as pull his pants back on. He flung the door open and caught the attention of several employees. What happened? The closest guy asked upon seeing the scene. That little shit hit me. This caught the attention of the other boys in the building. No one had ever struck a client. That was guaranteed to get them in huge trouble with Kazaki, and they were all aware of how ruthless he could be when angered. Go get Mr. Yamada, Sasuke heard one of the workers say. A feeling of regret settled in Sasuke's stomach. At the time, hitting that gross man seemed like a good idea, but it would prove to be a bad decision. Kakashi and Asuma met for lunch at one of the little restaurants in the village. Since both of their teams had been assigned the same mission, it seemed logical for them to talk over their next move. I've been thinking about something in the last few hours that has been bothering me, Kakashi started. We heard that several months after these kidnappings began, the town we were in began to economically recover. And you said that you heard of a brothel consisting of children. You think they are related? Asuma asked. I think it's possible, the other Jonin mused. Asuma lighted a new cigarette. That would make sense, but we can't back it up yet. Yeah, that's the problem. How do we connect those two things? I don't know. Did you notice anything else that might seem suspicious about that town? Well, the leader's son was ally abused before dying, and now similar boys have been vanishing. Then you caught word of a brothel with children? I doubt any child would willingly go to a place like that. This sounds like some sort of twisted revenge to me. I was thinking the same thing, but if it is true, I don't think that anyone would willingly admit to it. And because of that, we can't do anything about it. She's the leader of that village, so she doesn't have to let us investigate. If we just accuse her of something like this, she won't let us continue searching that community. This was such a tricky situation, especially since Sasuke was one of those boys. Asuma sighed out of frustration. We need to get into that brothel. That sounded extremely sick, but Kakashi knew just what Asuma was getting at. Sasuke would be there, and he probably knows who the owner is. That kid that proved Yamada is behind this. Exactly, but finding the place might prove difficult. People try to keep those things hidden from shinobi. If it's still in business, people know where it is. We just have to dig for the information. Kakashi stated. We better get started soon. Then, Asuma sighed, for both Sasuke and everyone else's sake. The two of us should go without our teams, the copy ninja added. Both Sakura and Naruto would only prove to slow us down since they are so worried about Sasuke, and Ino would do the same. I can't argue with that fact, it will be faster with just the two of us. I'll go inform Lady Tsunade of our consensus. I don't think she will disagree with our plan. Kazaki was sitting in his private office in the front of the building. It was the only room located near the main entrance. He was counting out the money that the morning had brought in when someone knocked on the door. What is it? The masculine man asked with an irritated voice. A man popped his head in the door. We have a problem, sir. What kind of a problem? He asked. If it was something stupid, this poor guard was going to regret bothering him. The Uchiha boy, he hit his client. Shit. Kazaki rose from his seat. The overweight customer was yelling at the employees about Sasuke's behavior. That kid shouldn't even be here. He is a worthless little brat. Is this kind of thing okay around here? Please calm down, sir. Kazaki's tone changed to a pleasant and civilized one. Would you care to explain what happened for me? That kid gave me a nosebleed. He punched me in the face. The whiny voice of said obese man disgusted even Mr. Yamada. I apologize, but you were warned that he was not ready. That's what the one guy said, but you tried to convince me that it was fine. I did no such thing. I merely mentioned his lineage. You shouldn't be marketing kids that act like that. I apologize for his behavior. Perhaps we can settle on an agreement? Kazaki asked. If this got out, business would decline, resulting in the debt of his village once again. You can have 2 sessions for free in exchange for this experience, as well as keeping this quiet. 2 for this plus 1 for not mentioning it. The man replied. Very well. Kazaki agreed. The larger male said something about being late for work and rushed out the door shortly after. Where's the kid? He growled to his subordinates. Daisuke put him back in his cell. One man said, pointing towards Sasuke's chamber where a man was locking the door. Kazaki walked over to the man securing Sasuke's chamber. Thank you, Daisuke, but I'll take things from here. Yes, sir. The thin man was taken off guard from the sudden appearance of his superior. Sasuke was also shocked by the voice, it sounded unexpectedly calm. I'll ask you the same question as your client. What happened? He reopened the gate closing off the Uchiha. All of the boys around Sasuke watched the situation unfold. The chain link separators allowed most to clearly see him. Take your time, the older male said, I'll wait. I didn't know what to do. Sasuke spoke quite loudly. He didn't want to receive another strike from speaking too softly. So you punched him? No, So you didn't punch him? I did, but you better get your story straight. Kazaki hissed. This man had serious mood swings. I had to give you credit, though. Most of these other kids don't have the guts to do something like that. They clung to every word I said from the moment I touched them. You certainly have a strong fighting spirit. It's quite a challenge, but I'm up for a challenge. Sasuke stared with wide eyes. Was this man mad at him? It was hard to tell. I suppose this thing is my fault. I should have realized that you weren't ready for this yet. However, you still cost me a lot of money, and you disobeyed me. His voice grew colder and darker. For that, you are going to pay. Dark-colored eyes watched as their master dragged Sasuke back to the training room. It was horrifying for the children to watch, but this new boy made their mistakes seem minuscule, so his treatment was accepted by them. Since the town Asuma was in provided the information about said brothel, the two Jonin began their quest for information at that location. They had both removed their headbands and changed into regular attire rather than the standard shinobi uniform. Kakashi went as far to use a transformation jutsu to disguise his identity. The scar over his eye and face mask would be cause for suspicion. It was dark when they arrived, and Asuma suggested checking the bar first. Drunk people spilled information like leaky faucets, so it seemed like a logical approach. Kakashi and Asuma sat at a table near the entrance. Two men came waltzing in several moments later. "You're lucky you weren't working today," one of the men said. The boss got real mad. They took a seat at the bar and continued to converse. "I heard some guy got punched." The other replied, "Yeah, that new kid hit him in the face." The conversation sounded relatively normal. It appeared to be a problem between coworkers. "It gave him a nosebleed. I don't blame the kid though. That guy was gross." "Was it a regular?" "Yeah," the other gulped down some alcohol. "It was that rich, fat guy. Saburo Kimura." The other man started busting up. "He had it coming. That guy is nasty." "Yeah," the first began to laugh, too. It made the boss mad, though. He had to give Kimura the next 3 times free to stay quiet. Kakashi and Asuma stopped listening to these guys. They were clearly just talking over their job. They started to look around the bar for other people that may be speaking about something relevant, but were quickly drawn back to the other two. "So the new kid, huh? I didn't think anyone would be willing to deny the boss. I didn't think it would happen either, but that Uchiha sure made it look easy. So what did he get in return for his little act of rebellion?" By now, both Jonin were intently listening. "I kinda feel bad for the kid." The first man sighed. "That happened at 12, and when I left at 4, the kid was still in the back room with the boss." "You're too soft, Daisuke. The kid deserves it for not listening." The two men started talking about something else and continued to down more alcohol. "They work for the guy who got Sasuke," Kakashi, Asuma whispered, "and it's clear that they are keeping his name a secret. They keep calling him, boss. I guess that rules out K as a suspect. They're talking about a man. He does have Sasuke, though. So what do you want to do?" "Let's tail one of them. He'll probably go there tomorrow." "Sounds like a plan." The two shinobi were hidden amongst the brush outside of Daisuke's apartment complex. The sun had finally come up after hours of darkness. Time seemed to drag on forever in Kakashi's mind, for he knew he would see Sasuke the following day. They saw the skinny man emerge from the building and journey out of the town. He traveled down a little path leading that went on for several miles. It eventually led to a large building. Said structure looked abandoned. It was run down and shabby, but that would be a good place to run such a service. "Are you ready, Asuma?" Kakashi asked, still in his transformed mode. "I guess we'll have to go in if we want to figure this out and get Sasuke back," Asuma replied. "What's our plan?" "I'll look for Sasuke, and you should stay out here. Be ready in case something goes wrong." "Got it." The man in disguise headed for the front doors, prepared for the shock lying behind them. Mental preparation was not enough to prepare him for the sight, however. Even for a man who had killed numerous people, this was terrifying. There were probably around 100 boys chained to walls, each with an independent cell made of wire fencing. He still had to carry out the mission, though. Kakashi began to walk down the first row of kids, trying not to look at them too closely. Though he wanted to get all of their poor souls away from whoever kidnapped them, his priority was to find out who the man was. It would be pointless to free these children if more would be taken in their place. He had walked through the whole building, but the Uchiha was nowhere to be found. A man came up to him. It was the thin one from the bar. His name was Daisuke, if Kakashi could recall correctly. "Would you like the rates on any of them?" "Actually," Kakashi started, "I was informed that there is an Uchiha here. I would like to see him." "He's not available at the moment," Daisuke replied. "The boss decided that he needs more training before taking on another client." "Could I speak with this boss?" Kakashi asked. "I understand why you would like a session with that kid," the employee said, "but the boss said that kid isn't ready yet." Kakashi couldn't blow his cover by pressing for Sasuke. It would seem suspicious if he continued to ask about him. However, he figured out a way to find out some information. "I'll take this one, then." he said, gesturing to a random boy. Yes sir, please go to room 6. He will join you in a moment. The Jonin felt awful that these boys were forced to do this kind of thing on a daily basis, and he couldn't imagine the mental and physical toll it would take. It took less than a minute after Kakashi was in the room for the young boy to join him. The young one quickly approached the Jonin, stopping only about a foot away. What would you like me to do for you? The kid asked. I only have one thing to ask of you, Kakashi responded. I'll do anything, the boy replied. He must have gone through so much in order to offer that. Could you tell me the name of the man who owns this place? The boy took a step back. He looked cautiously at Kakashi. Why would he want to know such a thing? All of the people who came to this place only wanted one thing, and it wasn't to chat. I can't tell you that. Please, Kakashi begged, I need to know his name. I was assigned to free you from this place, but in order to do that, I need to know who put you here. But if he finds out I told you, he'll make me go to the back room. The fear was obvious in this child's eyes. That's what happened to the new kid. Kakashi knew that Sasuke was the new kid that this boy was speaking of, and since the Uchiha was not out in the main section, he was probably still in this back room. I only want to help you. Kakashi tried to comfort the scared boy. I can get you out of here, but I have to know who put you in here. Kakashi had thought about just taking down all of the adults at this location, but if their boss was not here, it would be counterproductive. The man would realize that people were after him and make it more difficult to find him the next time. His name is. The boy lowered his voice to a low whisper. Mr. Yamada. That's what the guards call him, anyway. Yamada? Kakashi asked. Do you know his first name? No. The boy whispered. Please don't tell them I told you. I won't tell them anything. Kakashi smiled a visible smile. His transformation was not wearing a mask, thank you. I'll get you out of here. The child did not know what to say. No one had ever cared about his life once he was in this place. All he could do was hope that the man before him was no lying. Kakashi messed up his clothes a bit and told the boy to lay down on the bed. They won't know we talked if you pretend that we didn't. I have to go now, thank you again. The Jonin left the room and paid the employee at the entrance a hefty price. He met up with Asuma a little further up the road before transforming back into his regular state. How did it go, Kakashi? The dark-haired man asked. I couldn't find Sasuke. He was in a back room set aside for training. He cringed at the word, but I did find out something worthwhile. A boy told me that the man who brought him there is named Mr. Yamada. Yamada? That's the name of that village leader. Asuma exclaimed. I thought her husband was dead? He was said to have committed suicide, so that leaves us with two possibilities. This man is not involved with her, though I don't believe that is the case, Kakashi admitted, or Kazaki Yamada faked his death. Considering all of the victims are similar to the Yamada's son, I'm guessing the latter is correct, Asuma said, but now we need to figure out why. That leaves us with two options. He could have killed his son, and then faked his death to get out of the public eye, which would allow his new business to start. Or he and his wife planned this as revenge for their son and a way to pull their village back out of the debt that resulted from their lack of leadership after that incident. Asuma finished, and both were leaning towards the last option. We should report this to Lady Tsunade. Then we can figure out our next move. Yeah, Kakashi agreed. With this new information, she can authorize the use of force against Kei Yamada. Something we couldn't do before since she is the leader of another town. Let's go, then. I would have never guessed that those two would have done such a thing. Tsunade said when Asuma and Kakashi finished explaining what had happened. Is this enough information to detain Kei? Kakashi asked impatiently. If they could bring her in, Ibiki could rattle the truth out of her. With this type of situation, I can't authorize that, Tsunade admitted, since Kei is another village leader. We would need the fire daimyo's permission, especially since this is not a direct threat to the Leaf Village. They've kidnapped Sasuke, though. Isn't that considered an offense since he has a Kekai Gankai unique to our village? Asuma asked. It is, but since it is within the land of fire, I don't have the authority to allow that, Tsunade said. In almost all other cases, the Leaf has superiority over the smaller villages, but in this case, it is involving another leader of a presumably innocent town. It would look like our village is using force to expand. That is not acceptable, even if this situation is severe. Tsunade could see that Kakashi was frustrated, and he had every right to be. One of his students had been taken to an awful place that abused him for something he played no part in, but her role as Hokage took priority. I know it's difficult, Kakashi, but the mission we received was to investigate and locate the missing children. Until you can prove that she is connected, I can't let you take drastic measures. This situation was rather frustrating. The leader of a brothel could be arrested regardless, but if they took Kazaki into custody, Kei could still continue the business. If they were to end this whole thing, they would have to catch the Yamadas together, or Kei could continue to pull strings from the shadows. It deeply bothered Kakashi that he could not help his precious student, but in order to solve this problem, the poor Uchiha would have to wait just a little longer. It was dark again, and in the large building that held tens of children sat one boy who was badly beaten and violated. Sasuke had been returned to his small chamber near the back wall. Kazaki and the other older males had left the building for the night. It was the first time since Sasuke's arrival that all of the boys were left alone. Only a handful of the boys conversed, and the remainder sat in silence or whimpered from sadness. Sasuke was one who stayed quiet, though he had probably been physically hurting the most. In the darkness, no one could see the extent of his pain, but his body was littered with bruises, cuts, and blood from hours of abuse. His whole figure was in pain. His previously fractured wrist was now completely broken along with his other one. The justification for doing that was to ensure that he would not try to attack anyone else, at least that was Kazaki's reason behind it. Even if Sasuke had chakra, he wouldn't be able to form hand signs for a while. While he sat in the pitch-black environment, Sasuke thought over his life. He thought about Team 7. It was amazing how much the Uchiha missed that obnoxious blonde kid. Arguing with him was fun compared to the last few days here. Even having Sakura drool over him sounded nice at the moment. Unfortunately, Sasuke was not able to do anything in order to return to his village. He could barely manage to move without being in excruciating pain, so there was no point in trying. He was never one to rely on other people, but in this case, his comrades held his future in their hands. "Hey, Kakashi, you wanted to see me?" Might Guy turned to his masked rival when the latter approached. "Hello Guy," Kakashi greeted. "I did. I have a favor to ask." "Anything for my number one rival." The man with a bowl cut shot a sparkling smile towards Kakashi. "You've heard about the kidnappings in the surrounding villages, right?" Kakashi asked, receiving a nod from the other man. "Lady Tsunade forbid us from taking further action against the suspected kidnapper since she is another village leader. I heard most of the story from Asuma. They also managed to get Sasuke." "Yeah," Kakashi sighed, "and that makes this matter more urgent." "What can I do to help?" the man in the green jumpsuit asked. "I've come up with an idea to confirm if our suspicions are true," the masked Jonin said. "The targets have been boys from 10 to 15 years of age, and they all have pale skin with dark hair and eyes. There is someone on your squad that is only lacking one of those traits." "Very clever Kakashi," Guy smiled. "You want to use Lee as a trap to catch the kidnapper?" "I was actually thinking along the lines of Neji," Kakashi continued. "His Byakugan would be a tremendous help. Do you think they would go for him, though?" Guy thought it over. Neji could handle himself, but that's what everyone said about Sasuke, too. However, Neji would be prepared for an attack, that was the whole point. "I know that he's not a perfect match since his eyes are about as light as they can get, but I don't think that will deter them. Not all of the children in that place looked exactly like the description given." "Alright, Kakashi," Guy said, "since Neji is such a capable kid, I'll let you take him." "Thanks, Guy. Have him go to the bridge over on the west side of the village tomorrow morning. And you don't have to worry about him, I promise that he will be fine," Kakashi assured the man before they parted ways. Though this plan seemed a bit absurd, it was the fastest way to finding the truth. And in order to get Sasuke, as well as the other children, out of that place, missions such as this had to take place. The two genin currently in Squad 7 had met up to walk to the bridge together. Several hundred yards from the location, Naruto noticed a figure on the overpass. "What's Neji doing over there?" Naruto asked his female teammate. She looked up to see the other genin standing at their usual spot. "That's weird. I don't know what he's doing." As they got closer, Naruto decided to find out. "What are you doing here, Neji?" "This is where we are supposed to meet up with Kakashi-sensei for today's mission. I don't think you're supposed to be here." "Guy-sensei told me to come here this morning," Neji replied smugly. Don't ask me why, but I'm supposed to fill in for Sasuke on your mission today. That's all I know. We don't need you to fill in for Sasuke, Naruto responded, so you can leave. Actually, he is very important to this mission, Naruto. Kakashi said from his perch on a nearby tree. You're only a few minutes late. Sakura muttered. When the Jonin arrived relatively on time, there was usually something troubling the man. What's going on, Kakashi-sensei? We have an important assignment today, he replied. We are going to return to the town that Sasuke disappeared in. So we are finally going to rescue him? Naruto asked with excitement. Not only was he glad that Sasuke would be returning, but this was also his chance to outshine the Uchiha. Not exactly, the Jonin said. We are going to prove who took him. That is about all we can do at the moment. It sounds like you know who took him. Neji declared. We have a pretty good idea, but you know who it is and you haven't done anything yet? Naruto shouted. This is a difficult situation to deal with. I only happened upon that information yesterday. How did you find out? Sakura asked. Yeah, and where were you yesterday? I was looking everywhere for you. Naruto squinted. I was on a mission with Asuma. We found the place that Sasuke was taken to, but we don't have. You found him and didn't bring him back? Sakura asked. There are most likely two people involved in this. At least one of them is a shinobi, so we need to be cautious. Kakashi paused, waiting to be interrupted. When no one took that liberty, he continued. Acting hastily will only make things worse. Sasuke is not the only victim, and though I want to retrieve him as desperately as you, we cannot focus solely on him at the moment. Doing that could cause an even larger problem for the other kids. At least tell us where he is. Naruto begged. Kakashi finally jumped down to ground level. He let his eye meet both of his students. Do you remember the place that Asuma and Shikamaru mentioned? Naruto and Sakura grew pale at his question. You mean that he? Naruto managed to choke out those words. How could that have happened to Sasuke? Yes, Kakashi answered. Asuma and I learned that he is definitely in that place. If you know he's there, then why haven't you got him out yet? Naruto shouted. Sasuke was his best friend above all else. He couldn't bear the thought of him being forced into such things. I want to get him away from there. I honestly want that over anything else at the moment. But getting him out of there would only make the situation more complex for the rest of the victims. We have to think about their well-being, too. Well, what are we going to do, sensei? Sakura asked. She was on the verge of tears for her teammate. Who would do such a thing to her Sasuke? What did he do to deserve such treatment? We have to prove that our suspect is the kidnapper, Kakashi started. He then went into detail about how a Mr. Yamada was the leader of the brothel and that he most likely faked his death for revenge and money. And that is where Neji comes in. He concluded. So I'm going to be used as bait, so to speak, Neji said, and I will need to identify the people who are trying to take me. That's about it, Kakashi answered. Instead of being caught off guard as most of the boys were, you will anticipating an attack. You need to be patient and collect as much information as you can about the people involved. I noticed that the children were bound with chakra chains, so use any means necessary to get away before they drain your chakra with those bindings. This sounds like a rather risky mission, Neji mused. If Sasuke Uchiha could have been caught so easily, these people must have some skill, but it is a mission, nonetheless. What information do you have on the abductor? We know that Kazaki Yamada was a Chunin before he left the village about 9 years ago, the Jonin stated, and he's probably the one who took Sasuke since he is a shinobi. Therefore, he will probably come after you. The men working for him are just a bunch of thugs, so I would assume that he is the one taking any genin that might interest him. As far as his skill level, we don't know, but he was able to cover his tracks and get Sasuke when Naruto who was sleeping only several feet away. The blonde felt horrible after that remark. It was only to describe this man's stealth, but it also pointed out how ignorant Naruto was. I thought you would be the best suited for this mission, Kakashi added. You specialize in close-range combat, so you should be able to use your gentle fist art in order to get away after discovering the necessary information. With the genin all having a general understanding, the team departed for that little town once again. Wake up, kid, Sasuke heard. It was surprising that he actually managed to sleep the previous night, but his body needed time to heal. Wake up. Kazaki's voice wanted to make Sasuke keep his eyes closed until it disappeared, but that would prove to have consequences. The Uchiha opened his eyes slowly, the pain in his body beginning to surface as he became conscious again. So tell me what you learned yesterday. Sasuke glanced at his damaged body that was illuminated by the dim light coming from the scarce lamps. Knowing that his state would get worse if he didn't answer, he spoke. I won't disobey you again. He grunted out. That's a good boy. Kazaki unlocked his door and entered. Now it's time for you to move out of this little corner. Today, you're going to be front and center. He tugged Sasuke from the ground, causing the boy to whimper from his sore body being touched. Actually, the elder male examined Sasuke's horrid condition. Norio, clean him up. He's filthy, then put him in the empty chamber in the front. A short, chubby man lumbered over. This was the man who was about to force himself on Sasuke the first day, only to be stopped by Kazaki. With pleasure, the stubby man said with a creepy grin spread over his face. And don't do anything to him other than that. Mr. Yamada stared at his subordinate. We don't want him in worse condition for the clients. As he was being dragged away, Sasuke saw a man approach Kazaki. Sir, the man began, I have a message from Mrs. Yamada. The team that the Uchiha was with has a new member. There is a Hyuga with them. A Hyuga, huh? Kazaki mused. He could go for nearly as much as the Uchiha. Those were the last words Sasuke heard before being pulled into a little room to be cleaned up. Unaware of Kakashi's plan, Sasuke became very aware of three things. The first being that Neji was filling in for him, which bothered him slightly. The other two being that Neji was going to be targeted and brought here. Are you sure this will work, sensei? Naruto asked while unpacking his sack in the hotel room. It's all we've got, Kakashi confessed, unless we want Lady Tsunade to get into trouble with the fire daimyo. It just seems really risky, Sakura added looking at Neji. What if something goes wrong? Neji's capable of this. I wouldn't have requested him if he wasn't. We thought that about Sasuke, too, Naruto commented, and he's just as good as Neji. Sasuke was taken by surprise. The Hyuga said, I'm prepared for this. My gentle fist technique is more effective for close range than Sasuke's taijutsu skills, as well. That's true, the Jonin agreed. Neji can also emit chakra from any point in his body, so breaking out of those chakra binds could be possible. Overall, Neji stands a better chance. So how exactly am I going to get captured? Neji proceeded to ask, ignoring Sakura's angry expression. No one was better than Sasuke in her mind. Go to the bathhouse sometime after dark. If you're alone, I have a feeling that Kei's husband will show up. Kakashi said plainly, there really wasn't much else to it. So what are we supposed to do until night comes? Naruto asked. I'm not just going to sit around this room until then. I did enough of that with Pervy Sage, and that let Sasuke's brother attack me, and... His rambling went on being ignored by the others. If this was going to continue until the sunset, Kakashi, Neji, and Sakura would all go insane. After being thoroughly wiped off, Sasuke was placed in his new container. This one was at the very front of the building. He was the first kid one would see upon entering. Unfortunately for Sasuke, almost everyone took notice of him. He's new, right? One man asked. That's right, an employee responded. He's from the Uchiha clan, too. An Uchiha? The lanky man thought that over. What's his price? This one's double the others. Double? The guy looked over Sasuke. That's a bit steep, don't you think? I mean, look at him. He looks like he got beat up. Even though the blood and grime was washed away, Sasuke still had slashes and bruises on his body, as well as both broken wrists. What happened to him? The potential client asked. That was caused from an earlier incident, however, his rate is fair. This kid is the only remaining member of the famed Uchiha clan. So this kid was the one that killed everyone? He asked with shock. He couldn't have been 10 when that happened. Those words snapped Sasuke out of his daze. Even though Itachi had nothing to do with his current predicament, the young Uchiha decided to blame it on him. In his mind, Itachi was the source of all evil. The customer noticed the glare he was receiving from Sasuke. I don't think I want him. He looks sort of crazy. With that, the man started to browse for a cheaper target. You see what you did? The guard leaned in towards the cage door. Did you not learn your lesson yesterday? It's not your place to stare people down. If I catch you doing that to someone else, I'll personally make you regret it. Got it? Sasuke shot a glance towards the ground. He didn't want to go through anything as rough as he did in the previous day. That experience was pure torture. It was brutal to say the least. I heard you say he's the last Uchiha? Another man asked. Contrary to the last, this guy had a muscular build and looked like he wanted to hit something. That's right, the other answered, he's a real treasure. I'll bet his rate is higher. How much? He's about 3,000 yen for the hour, the worker replied. Why not? The muscular guy said. I'll take him. If you could please go to room 2, I'll bring him right back. The client nodded and strolled back to the private rooms. Once gone, the other male pulled Sasuke out. Okay, kid, this is your last chance to get things right. You screw up and I'll smash that little head of yours. Sasuke, though he wouldn't admit it, was intimidated by that. Don't be silly, Kazaki noted as he walked past. He often took laps around the building to keep some of the rowdier children in check. If he messes up this time, I'll be the one breaking his head open. That stuck in the Uchiha's mind while he was forced towards room number 2. He couldn't die, not yet. His mission in life was not complete, which meant he would have to suck up his pain and throw out his Uchiha pride until he managed to get out of this place. The violent-looking man had an eerie smirk on his face when Sasuke entered the chamber. This was going to be hell, but in order to ensure survival, the Uchiha would endure it again. Come here, boy, join me on the bed. Sasuke forced his painful figure to advance in the direction where more agony awaited. You're new around here, right? The man asked as the Uchiha moved slowly forward. Yeah, Sasuke said hesitantly. Considering your age, Sasuke's client continued, I suppose no one has pleased you before. Why don't you lay down for me? I can show you a good time. This idea was foreign to the Uchiha. Wasn't he the one who was supposed to be pleasuring this man? And the thought of another male touching him was disgusting, even though he had been violated several times by one. However, he did not want to be tortured for acting against the customer again. The boy avoided using his hands when getting on the mattress, for his wrists could not take the strain of holding his body. Once he was on his back, the elder male leaned down to take his member. The touch of a warm and wet object on his flaccid shaft shot a wave of pleasure through his small body. The body felt guilty for enjoying the heat of another man's mouth on his crotch, but he couldn't help enjoying it after all the pain he had gone through prior to this. After several moments of being exposed to the pleasure, Sasuke's body began to respond. He felt repulsed when it acted on its own, but didn't try to stop it from a mixture of fear and satisfaction, the latter making him feel worse. He could feel something well up in his stomach as his newly formed erection began to throb with anticipation. The boy couldn't help but breathe in gasps and finally allow a sound of pleasure to escape. This made the client rapidly pump Sasuke into climax, allowing him to release. The poor boy felt so guilty about being pleased by this man. Now that you've had your fun, the guy said, let me have mine. Get on your hands and knees. But, Sasuke whispered as he came down from his high. He looked at the broken joints he possessed. I can't. What does that mean? The man asked. You don't think I did that for you just because I felt like it, did you? The real reason behind that was to alleviate his own guilt of taking advantage of a boy who had no say in the matter. He caught on to why Sasuke was trying to refuse. The boy's wrists were swollen, but he didn't know why or to what extent. You broke him, huh? Then just put your head down and stay on your knees. That works, too. Sasuke was glad that this guy was cutting him some slack. Kazaki was ruthless. That man was the one who put him in this sorry state, anyway. It was clear to the Uchiha that the man above him had a guilt complex for doing this, which was good for Sasuke considering that it could have been someone else. Unfortunately, however, his insides were still healing from being torn so badly. This was not enough to prevent the current male from entering him, though. He felt his flesh rip and begin to bleed again when said male pushed in, and though this guy wasn't as cruel as Mr. Yamada, he didn't give Sasuke much time to adjust before pounding away. Seems like you did a good job today, Sasuke, Kazaki said to the boy as he counted up the cash received thanks to him. I knew you would be a good choice. Sasuke was sitting on the floor of Kazaki's office. A guard brought him there so the boss could review Sasuke's work. It's unfortunate that I can only rent you to a few people today, he said, switching his gaze to the boy. But you can't help that sorry condition you're in. You could have prevented it by not acting recklessly, but now that you're like that, you can't be overused. That would completely ruin you, and then I wouldn't make any money. Sasuke didn't say anything back. He just blankly stared at the wall behind his tormentor. Don't act so desolate. You're my favorite kid here, Kazaki said to the broken child. You should be proud. Proud? Of what? Making money for someone who you ally abused him by having non-consensual. Yeah, that was something he should have pride for. In actuality, this boy had no pride left. He let himself be touched and ravaged by 3 men today. It was purely disgusting. Whether you choose to sulk all day or not, I'm having you out back in the rear of the building for tonight, Kazaki said, almost sounding like he cared for the boy. You need to rest. It would be a shame if you died from loss of blood or something. Sasuke shifted his eyes to view Kazaki. He seemed to be generous today, considering who he was, which was fortunate for the Uchiha that couldn't manage to move alone from the pain. It was finally night time, which meant Neji was preparing for his mission. If you start to feel that the situation is getting out of hand, Kakashi instructed, I want you to return here immediately. I know that abandoning a mission is considered to be awful, but in this case, disregard that completely. I don't want you to get stuck in that place, too. As you said before, Neji started, this mission is well suited for me. Just be careful, insisted the Jonin, good luck. With that, Neji headed towards the hot springs alone. He didn't get in. It would be stupid of him to be dragged off to a brothel without clothing, so he just sat by the water's edge. It was nearly an hour before the kid sensed anyone approaching him. He ignored it. If this was going to work, he needed to act defenseless and surprised. The water sure looks nice and hot, someone said, causing Neji to turn his head. Unfortunately, I didn't come here to take a bath. Before Neji had time to react, the man pierced his skin with some sort of syringe. After only mere seconds, the Hyuga's vision faded into blackness. He woke up some time later, taking notice that one of his wrists was tethered to a wall. There was a fence surrounding him on 3 sides. The more he woke, the more he took in. It was dark. It was quiet, and he couldn't quite remember how he had arrived at this location. He felt somewhat dazed until he realized exactly where he must be. He saw a bunch of boys sitting in the same situation he was. The only difference was that this Hyuga was still wearing his clothes. Then he caught sight of something. It was a familiar face sitting in the chamber directly to his right. Sasuke? The Uchiha looked completely exhausted. He appeared to be sleeping at first, but his eyes quickly shot open upon hearing his name. It took a minute before Sasuke realized where the voice came from. None of the other boys had spoken to him before, so he assumed it must have been Kazaki or Worker. Oh, he sighed in relief seeing his hidden leaf comrade. I thought you would end up here. What? Neji didn't quite understand. How could Sasuke have known that he was even in the area? They were talking about you this morning. Sasuke informed him. In the darkness, it wasn't clear how badly the Uchiha had been hurt, but his voice alluded to some form of suffering. Are there guards around here? Neji asked. With this cuff on his arm sucking his chakra away, he needed to act fast, but he didn't have enough to fight anyone at the moment, so it would be pointless if there were people to witness his escape. They left for the night, Sasuke replied. With the last of his draining chakra, Neji managed to break the binding by emitting a powerful burst of chakra from the points in his left wrist. Thankfully, Neji had superb control over the tenketsu in his body, allowing him to perform such actions. Sasuke watched as Neji came across the next obstacle to escape, the gate locking him in. This thing had a hefty lock on it, making escape hard for one with nearly depleted strength. However, most of the boys here were not shinobi, and these locks were not meant to contain someone with the skills of a ninja. Forcing himself to squeeze out more chakra than he thought possible, Neji broke through. This caught the attention of many children. First, the Uchiha boy hit someone, and now this kid was breaking out. Though this wasn't a rescue mission, Neji wouldn't allow himself to leave an ally. His mission was a failure, anyway, so bringing Sasuke back would be the least he could do. Sasuke, do you know where the keys are? Neji asked while keeping a lookout for returning employees. He takes them at night, Sasuke replied. This meant that Neji would have to expend more of his depleted energy into breaking Sasuke out. Perhaps Rock Lee would have been better for this mission, for his taijutsu did not require chakra, while Gentle Fist depended upon it. Unfortunately, Neji did not have time to rest, and Sasuke was out of chakra as well. This left them in quite a bind as someone could come back any moment, for they did not know what time it was, and there were no windows to indicate morning. Just go, Sasuke said as Neji contemplated what to do. It's bad enough that I'm in here. If you can get out, you should leave. I had a mission to complete, Neji replied trying to gather chakra, I was supposed to find out if Kei Yamada is involved with this. I failed to do that, so I'm at least going to get you out of here. I'll be fine, Sasuke repeated. He couldn't let someone else get stuck here for his sake. That was a burden he didn't want. I can hear in your voice that you're not fine, the other said back. I've replenished a little chakra, so I can break through this gate. Those who were awake watched as Neji roughly struck the hefty lock, and it twisted around and fell to the floor, allowing the door to creak open. Now there was only one thing standing in the way of Sasuke's freedom. The chakra-draining chain linked to one of his shattered wrists. The sun was sitting idly in the sky. The early light of dawn came in streaks through the hotel's curtains. Kakashi-sensei, Salora said from her bed. The two male teammates were sharing one of the beds since there were only two again. Shouldn't Neji have come back? It's already getting light outside. To be honest with you, the elder ninja sighed, I was wondering the same thing. I don't doubt that Neji is capable of succeeding, but it is odd that he's not back yet. Do you think that he actually got captured? Sakura wondered aloud. Having one comrade vanish was too much, but considering that it was her beloved Sasuke, it would be. However, she couldn't handle losing someone else, even if it was someone as arrogant as Neji. Sasuke was the same way, but that was different since she was infatuated with him. Though, it must be noted that after losing to Naruto during the Chunin exams, Neji had lost much of his pretentiousness. I'm not going to say no because I really can't be sure, Kakashi replied. I guess we'll just have to wait around here to see if he comes back in the next few hours. As the girl was in the middle of forming her next sentence, there was a noise in the hall. It sounded extremely close to their door. Kakashi got up to investigate the noise. With everything going on in this town, it was best to use caution when checking out something suspicious such as this noise coming from beyond the door. The door opened to reveal something that both shinobi were expecting. Neji was standing on the other side with Sasuke leaning on his shoulder. The Hyuga looked fine, slightly tired, but overall pretty well. Sasuke, on the other hand, looked like a mess. He was draped in a dirty sheet, probably just so he could return being covered in something. His exposed skin, which was really only part of his legs and face, had cuts and bruises marring it. His eyes were heavy and his posture was crooked from pain and exhaustion. Sasuke. Sakura gasped looking him over. Without thinking, she jumped to embrace him. The unwanted touch was greeted by a tensing body and a whimper of pain. She immediately pulled back after realizing that she had hurt him by basically pouncing on him. Bring him inside, Kakashi instructed Neji. He needs to lay down. Put him on Sakura's bed. Naruto was still sprawled out on half of the bed nearest to the door, so they attempted to take Sasuke around to the other mattress, but he fell down next to Naruto before making it. His broken body along with the long journey back to the hotel made him ready to pass out. It was hard enough for him to just walk from one end of that prison to the other. Kakashi-sensei. Naruto yelled. Stop moving around so much. You've woken me up like 4 times. He sharply turned his head in the direction he thought Kakashi would be, but he did not see that man. Instead, there was an Uchiha breathing raggedly with his eyes screwed shut laying next to him. There were 3 other shinobi hovering over the boy, too. Sasuke. Naruto stared at his friend blankly. He had just woken up, so it didn't hit him quite yet. Sasuke. He proceeded to shout upon realizing what was happening. Get up, Naruto, Sakura hissed, give him some space. Right, sorry. Naruto jumped up to join the others observing Sasuke. It was only a matter of moments before Sasuke was completely out of it. His surroundings faded away as he passed out from utter exhaustion and the aching through his whole body. Sasuke? Kakashi looked concerned when the boy blacked out. He wasn't sure to what extent Sasuke had been forced to go, but it was clear that he was in bad condition. I think he fell asleep. Sakura mumbled. What are we going to do now? Naruto looked to the eldest male. For now, we are going to stay here. I don't want to move him anymore, Kakashi answered. We don't know if he has internal injuries or even the extent of his external ones. But he needs to get medical care, Sakura protested. He can't even stand up anymore. I know, but trying to force him to move won't do him any good. We need to wait a little while, stated the Jonin. Neji, come into the hall with me. I'd like to discuss some information with you. I assume you would like to know what I found out, Neji said upon entering the hallway. I didn't learn anything. What happened? Kakashi asked. I was sitting near the hot springs as you instructed. About an hour into that, Some man came in and gave me some sort of injection, the younger shinobi replied, then I woke up in some sort of cage. I was dark, but I could see that Sasuke was next to me and managed to bring him back here. It's too bad that you didn't discover anything, Kakashi sighed, but recovering Sasuke is more important than that in my opinion. Back inside the room, Naruto and Sakura were both staring at Sasuke. I've never seen him look like this before, Naruto said. He always tries to look so tough and cool, but now, he looks, well, awful. I know. Sakura agreed on the verge of tears from seeing Sasuke so completely beat. Do you think that he'll be okay? Yeah, Naruto replied with false enthusiasm, for he was in doubt, too. He's Sasuke, after all. He'll be alright. You were the only one to have really seen the full extent of his injuries, Sakura said to Neji. Do you know how he's doing? He wouldn't admit it, but I know that it hurts him to move around, Neji replied. He's not in good condition, and he could barely manage to make it here. I had to support him the whole time, and he still nearly collapsed before we had even made it halfway here. He's waking up, Naruto shouted to the other shinobi. Sasuke slowly let his eyelids drift open. For the first time in several days, the scene he saw while waking was not horrifying. He turned his head to the left, letting his eyes fall onto 4 people. 2 of which were sitting on the edge of the adjacent bed, leaning over to watch him. Stop staring at me like that, Sasuke said to Naruto and Sakura, who relaxed a bit after hearing him speak. Now that Sasuke's awake, Kakashi noted, I'd like the 3 of you to go get some clothes for him. Though the boy did need clothes, the Jonin's primary reason for sending the others away was to examine Sasuke's injuries. It was clear that the group needed to take him back to the village for treatment, but he didn't want to strain the boy. He really needed to see Sasuke to decide what to do next. But, Kakashi-sensei, Sakura started. Both she and Naruto wanted to stay and hear Sasuke's story. Neither of them were really sure what happened to him, and they wanted to find out exactly what he went through, even though they had a basic understanding. We should get going now, Neji said to the curious 2. He could see why Kakashi was attempting to send them away. The sooner we do, the sooner Sasuke will be able to get to the Leaf's hospital. Naruto grumbled a response, but followed Neji and Sakura out the door, leaving the Jonin and the Uchiha in the room. Even though Sasuke knew that Kakashi would never do anything harmful to him, he felt a bit nervous being alone in the room with an older male due to his previous endeavors. How are you feeling? Kakashi asked. I'm fine, Sasuke lied. He didn't want to talk with Kakashi about what he went through, but the Jonin needed to assess his health. It's pretty clear that you're lying, the man replied. Would you mind removing that sheet? Kakashi was by no means a medical ninja, but he could at least get a basic idea of Sasuke's condition by viewing his external injuries. The Uchiha wanted to say no, but his time as a captive removed that word from his vocabulary. Why? He settled to ask that question rather than deny the man. I just want to see how badly you've been hurt, Kakashi said, trying to comfort the boy. I only want to get an idea of the medical treatment you will need. I'll be fine, Sasuke reiterated, not wanting anyone to see the marks that temporarily scarred his body. You will be, but you aren't at the moment. The boy's hesitation was clear and understandable, but Kakashi had to learn of his physical state. I'm not going to hurt you. The Uchiha gave in to his persistent teacher. The man only wanted the best for his pupil, after all. He moved his arms in attempt to take the fabric off, but moving his hands caused intense pain which kept him from removing the rag from his body. Kakashi took notice of how Sasuke was unable to utilize his hands while trying to expose himself, which seemed rather odd. What happened to your hands? Sasuke looked at his swollen joints, recollecting the horrid feeling when Kazaki cruelly crushed them. He broke my wrists. I'll bandage them up, Kakashi said. It will be a temporary fix until we go back to the Leaf, but it's better than trying to force them to heal without any support. The Jonin pulled some gauze from his sack and reached for Sasuke's left arm. The contact on his bruised flesh made the Uchiha flinch, but Kakashi proceeded to hold onto him in order to keep the wrists properly in line. When the elder male started to wrap the broken bones, pain shot down Sasuke's arm, making him inwardly scream. Seeing the extreme discomfort on his face, Kakashi was compelled to speak. I'm sorry, Sasuke, he said as he finished up the first. I just need to do the right one now. With white bandages wrapped securely around his wrists, the boy would begin to heal, but that was only one small portion of his body. It was obvious that Sasuke was banged up, but he was still mostly covered by the dirty fabric over his petite figure. "Can you take off that sheet?" Kakashi asked. He really needed to see how badly Sasuke needed medical care. If he wasn't terribly hurt, they could afford for him to rest up for a few days before going back. However, it might be possible that he was in need of serious treatment, and they would have to depart for the Leaf immediately. If that was the case, it would be difficult to take him back, but the Jonin would find a way to transport his precious student should he need immediate attention. Though, he would really like to give his pupil the chance to rest up for a little longer. Sasuke silently agreed and sat up on the bed, which caused a wave of pain to shoot up his spine. His lower area was throbbing, but other than the cuts and bruises, the Uchiha's upper body was in relatively good shape, allowing him to push the fabric away. "When Neji brought you back, you probably strained your already injured body," Kakashi mused as he saw the boy cringe while he adjusted his weight. "It's not surprising that you would be in pain when you move." The sight of Sasuke's exposed flesh was shocking. Kakashi knew that the boy had been tormented, but he wasn't expecting his whole body to be so cut up and bruised. It seemed the only part of the Uchiha that was not marked in some way was his face, and that was only so the clients would still be interested. Kakashi had originally planned on allowing Sasuke to rest, but it was clear that they had to get home. He could have numerous infections from both the open wounds and UAL abuse. "When Naruto and the others get back, we are going to return home," Kakashi told Sasuke. "You need to be treated by the medical corps. We found some clothes for—" The door opened and Naruto began to speak, but the sight of Sasuke's damaged body quickly silenced him. Neji was the only one in the room who had seen him like that, besides Kakashi, so the other two were surprised at just how poor of a state the Uchiha was in. Sasuke jerked the cover back onto the majority of his figure. It caused his body to ache at the sudden motion, but he didn't want Naruto and Sakura gawking at his cuts and bruises. "Sasuke." Sakura stared at him. "I'm so sorry." "Stop." He stated the word bluntly. Pity would only make him feel like more of a victim, and he didn't want that at all. "We are going to go back to the village." Kakashi caught their attention, dragging it away from the Uchiha. "Give Sasuke the clothes you got for him and pack your things." Naruto put a plain t-shirt and sweatpants down on the bed next to Sasuke. The outfit was nearly the same as the one Sasuke wore when he was in the hospital at various points throughout his life. Unable to properly move his hands, Sasuke needed help getting dressed. His arms and upper body were sensitive due to injuries, but he could still move that part of himself without excruciating pain. Unfortunately, however, that did not help him grip the clothing to pull over his figure. Naruto was the first to notice his struggle, as he was the only one who had finished packing. "Do you need help?" he asked his number one rival and closest friend. "No," Sasuke replied vehemently, causing the other three to turn towards him but quickly returned to their packing. "You just look like you're having a hard time with that," the blonde replied, and with two out-of-commission hands, it would be. Sasuke stared blankly at his wrapped-up hands for a moment. "I am having a hard time with it," he admitted. "I'll help you out, then." Naruto smiled. He walked a few feet to the other boy and slid the shirt over his head. He looked at the pants and that would be awkward, especially since Sakura was in the room. He decided to try to put them on his friend quickly, but ended up moving Sasuke the wrong way. "Sorry." Naruto gave an apology when the other boy grunted from being hurt. "Watch what you're doing," Sasuke replied coldly, shifting in order to let the bottom slide on. "I didn't mean to," the blonde said back. "I'm just trying to help you out." The other shinobi in the room ignored them out of consideration for Sasuke. It must be embarrassing having someone else dress you, especially after they knew some of the things you went through, but the true realization of that endurance would not be revealed to them until they got to the hospital. Sasuke rode atop Kakashi's back on the way to the Hidden Leaf, for his body was not well enough to travel on its own. The journey seemed to take forever before the giant front gates of the village were in sight. Kakashi decided that he would report back to the Hokage after getting the young Uchiha to the hospital. The nurse sitting at the front desk at the medical center prepared a room for Sasuke when Kakashi alerted her of the current situation, and after only a moment, the boy was able to lay down again. "Sasuke," Kakashi began to speak, "the nurses need to take a look at you. Are you going to be okay with that?" The young Uchiha didn't give a response. He already let Kakashi look at him, and it was horribly degrading to have another look upon his abused body. Plus, the Jonin didn't even see the worst of his injuries or touch him, and the medics would need to do both to make him better. They are only going to help, Kakashi added after the silence. You're going to be okay. I'll be out in the visitors area with Naruto and Sakura. Shortly after leaving, the Kakashi left the room. 3 medical ninjas entered. Sasuke recognized the men from previous visits to the hospital. They were of high skill level and genuinely caring people, but Sasuke could not help but feel anxious while they were present. "Hello, Ugai," one of the men said. He was a bit in the obese side with a beard and glasses. "We are going to look at your injuries and start to heal them. We are going to start with your wrists, they appear to be broken." The second man noted. He and Ugai each used their medical ninjutsu to correct the fracture. Green chakra flowed into Sasuke's bandaged limbs, and he could feel the bones reconnecting. "Don't strain your wrists too much. They are still vulnerable to fractures since they went untreated for several days. Can you flip onto your stomach?" Matate, another one of the shinobi, asked. They were already informed of what happened to this boy, so they needed to examine the part of his body that had taken the most abuse. He wasn't comfortable exposing that part of himself to these men. In fact, he was afraid to show them his rear. Being violated by several different men made Sasuke scared to let the medics look at him, for he was expecting them to do more than heal him, even though these 3 would not treat someone in such a way. Not to mention that it still hurt him to move around. "We aren't going to hurt you," Ugai added upon witnessing Sasuke's hesitation, "but we need to examine you. Are you able to flip over?" Mogasa, the previously unnamed third man, asked. He was aware that Sasuke's condition was severe, and he may not be able to move that much. Sasuke stared blankly at the wall. "I don't know. It hurts to move." "Okay," one of them said, "we will turn you over." 2 of the 3 medical ninjas gently placed their hands on Sasuke in order to flip him. However, the contact made him panic and pull away, causing his muscles to tense in sharp pain. "Relax, Sasuke," Matate said. He was the only one not touching the Uchiha. "It's going to be okay." The panic in Sasuke's eyes was obvious, as was the pain from pulling away so quickly. Fortunately for the medics, he calmed himself down enough for them to get him on his stomach. That meant it was time for the next step, though, which was sure to contain more of a struggle. "I'm going to remove your clothing now," Ugai stated. "Try to stay calm." When a hand began to pull down the gray sweatpants that he was wearing, Sasuke felt his poorly suppressed panic rise again. The training he had gone through told him not to protest, and he tried to hold back the involuntary cringing that wanted to protect his body, but he couldn't help but feel tears well up in his eyes as the memories and pain surged to the surface. After his rear was exposed, the man conducting the majority of the examination separated the 2 sides of Sasuke's behind to view his external injuries. The feel of hands on his torn flesh stung, making the water stream down his cheeks. The pain was unbearable, but the feeling of violation was what made Sasuke upset. By merely looking, these 3 could tell that Sasuke had contracted some sort of infection, amongst other things, from his time in that prison. "Kakashi," Ugai came out to the waiting room. "Could I speak to you alone for a moment?" There were no adults in Sasuke's life that looked after him, so Kakashi seemed like the best choice to inform about the Uchiha's state. "Wait," Naruto started when Kakashi was pulled aside. "We want to know, too," he said, gesturing to himself and Sakura. "For now," the Jonin said, "it's probably best if only I know." He was aware of how they would react to any news, so he didn't want them to know. After breaking away from Naruto and Sakura, the medic spoke again. "After completely a full examination on Sasuke, we found that he has multiple problems that came from previous activities." Kakashi knew that would be the case. He has some internal bleeding that resulted, and his skin has been damaged pretty bad. Fortunately, his external injuries were all healed. We also found that he does not have any hemorrhoids, which is also very fortunate. However, he did get an infection from various body fluids mixing into the open wounds created by the UAL assaults. "Is he going to be okay?" the masked man asked. Fortunately for him, this infection can be cured through medicine. It could take several weeks to completely eliminate it from his body, but it can be taken care of, the chubby man continued. Since he is in bad condition, it would be best for him to remain in the hospital for a while. His injuries will keep him from missions for quite some time, but he should be able to physically recover. Thank you, Kakashi said. He then decided to go check in on his young pupil, for the boy was probably pretty shaken after having more men touch him. Before he was able to go down the hall to Sasuke's room, Sakura stopped him. You're going to see Sasuke, right sensei? Yes, but you probably shouldn't join me yet. He's not doing very well. Kakashi informed her. He didn't want to say what was wrong with their teammate, for that would cause Sakura to panic. However, he couldn't lie and say that nothing was wrong. Can you tell me what happened to him? I won't tell Naruto. I just want to know how he is. It was then that Kakashi noticed the blonde wasn't present anymore. He had probably figured that Sasuke wouldn't want to see him or get angry if he did. Sakura, don't worry so much. Kakashi smiled under his mask to reassure her that things would be okay. Sasuke is going to fully recover. Okay, the girl choked out. She couldn't stand to hear about or see Sasuke in pain. After Sakura moped away, Kakashi proceeded down the hall to Sasuke's room. He slid open the door to reveal Sasuke laying on his stomach with his head turned away from the entryway. How are you feeling? The question made Sasuke jump since he wasn't aware that anyone had entered. Disgusted, Sasuke answered. More than anything else at the moment, he was completely appalled that he had received some sort of infection from one of those horrible men. I know, but it will go away. You could have gotten something much worse. The Jonin tried to look on the bright side, but that was hard to do, especially for Sasuke. Do you want something? The Uchiha asked, not moving an inch to look at his teacher. Kakashi moved around the bed so he could look at Sasuke. I know that you won't want to talk about this, Sasuke, but I had to ask you about that place and the person in charge. The Uchiha boy knew this was coming. There were still countless children locked inside that building, and he was really the only one who had made contact with Kazaki. I don't know that much about it. Sasuke attempted to get out of the conversation before it began, but in order to close it down successfully, Kakashi had to know more than he currently did. It's completely understandable that you don't want to tell me anything that happened, but there are other boys going. I know, Sasuke snapped. With his cuts and bruises healed, it was easier for him to move, so he turned away from Kakashi. After a moment of silence, Sasuke was able to calm himself down. His name is Kazaki, that's all I know. That's the name of the presumably dead husband of Kei Yamada. Kakashi said. He had assumed that this was the man behind it, but he only had a last name before now. Sasuke linked it together then. He knew that the last name sounded familiar, but was too preoccupied to think about it. And there is also the time that Mrs. Yamada sent a message about Neji. She's the one who told him about Neji. How do you know that? Did you see her? One of the men working there gave him a message from Mrs. Yamada. He didn't say a first name, but it said something about Neji being on your team. Sasuke relayed the information he had overheard a few days ago. That is exactly what we needed to know. Kakashi thought out loud. This could be enough for Lady Tsunade to authorize the next step of the mission.
That's all for now. If you want to see next part, then please like this video and subscribe my channel. Thank you.